Here we go, guys. When's the price crash coming? So this is it, guys. Fife property prices, when are they going to crash? I mean, that's really it. We're going to be talking about this on the show today. So on the show today, we've got Alicia, we've got Jimmy as well. Hi, guys. How are you?
Yeah,
Hi. Fine, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you what, though, Fife property prices in 2022, anything can happen. We're going to discuss it now. I mean, traditionally, if you've not sold your Fife home by the first week of November, you'd normally have to wait until the house sellers return for the famous Boxing Day bounces just passed. If you've missed it, it's jumped. We've been looking at statistics in the background. So the Boxing Day bounce is on its way up towards the end of January, and then it'll just keep going up and up and up in terms of activity. So the portals like Rightmove and Zoopla to get potential buyers interested. Yet matters have been different this year. At various lockdowns have caused a surge in house buying right up until when the Christmas edition of Radio Times goes on sale. So the question is, how will 2022 look regarding the Fife property market? Last couple of years, the Fife property market have been different in so many ways. This predicted price crash, it was supposed to happen at the beginning of this year of 2021 and the beginning of the previous year in 2020, or the end of the previous year, just didn't materialize, did it? So much and so many of Fife homeowners are presently deliberating whether they should put their Fife home in the market in January or wait until the late summer itself. I mean, speaking to so many Fife buyers, Fife sellers, and in fact, actually Fife buy-to-let landlords as well, in the last couple of weeks in the run-up to Christmas, many were asking the same question. And the question is, when's the Fife property prices going to crash? And what's going to happen to Fife property prices in 2022? Jimmy, you can kick off with this. Where do we think we're going with this?
I think, well, in my opinion, they're going to continue to rise. But the worst case scenario, I think, is they'll be pretty stable where we are now with the prices. I think it's like anything, the supply and demand. There's just such a limited stock available right now. They can only ever go up. It's like a rare item. When there's less available, the prices go up, and that's exactly what's happening right now. You only have to look about a couple of our sales that we've had. I think we might have agreed one on Christmas Eve. One of the properties that we've sold on Christmas Eve, we sold a property literally on the same street there recently, a couple of years ago, and the difference in price is astronomical. And people are saying that it might slow down or crash. I had a property today I was at, had 6 viewers through the door today on one property. So yeah, it's going to continue to rise, in my opinion.
What about inflation, though? What about power prices going up and utilities going up? And then you've also got wage inflation, which will come through towards April as well. You've got national insurance contributions as well going up. So that's going to take even more money out of everybody's pockets. That's going to curtail the market. Alicia, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, what you're saying is right, Jim. But I think what we have to try and remember is that all the predictions that were made surrounding the impact of COVID, there would be massive job losses. Well, that hasn't happened, actually. There has been massive a net gain in employment. Wages have actually gone up. So I think a lot of the predictions and the doommongers have been proven wrong and may well continue to be proven wrong.
Do you not think it's a case, though, when it's like this, it tends to be the case that, at some point in time, the train will stop or the aeroplane will crash, so to speak. And then that's the end of it. And then, when is that going to be? Can we predict that with any certainty?
In my opinion, no. Everything comes to an end, but in my opinion, you can't predict it. But with such limited stocks available, it can't happen anytime soon. It can't possibly.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. I mean, some people are asking the question that are Fife buyers troubling themselves that they're about to buy their Fife home just before a potential Fife property crash? yet other Fife homeowners wanting to know where the top of the market is before they sell. This is a question everybody asks all the time. Should I be selling at the top of the market? Should I be waiting for the bottom of the market? How can I predict the top of the market? The reality is it's all proportionally the same, really, because no matter what you're selling at the now, the same proportional increase is in what you're buying as well. The only way you're going to see the best side of that is if actually you're downsizing. If you're upsizing, you're probably going to see the other side of that as well, the other way, whereas you're going to be paying a wee bit more for your property because you're going to be selling a property at less of a value than what you're upsizing to. But the key here is even a handful of Fife landlords unable to even start buying or selling some of the rental portfolio as well. Therefore, let's see what happened in 2021 to make a better judgment of what would happen in 2022. You had said it, you'd hit the nail on the head there, Alicia, about things that had happened in 2021. Nobody has a crystal ball, and they can tell what 2022 holds. However, most property experts are actually not forecasting doom and gloom for the British property market. Whilst the final numbers, won't be there until Easter. This is the key here. It is estimated that in 2021, 1 in 15 privately owned homes in the UK are expected to have actually changed hands, being the busiest year since the last 14 years locally. 5,483 properties have actually changed hands in the last year in Fife, and that is probably going to go up in the medium term as well. Next year, once the final numbers are in and we're over the line. Although that's only up to October, as I'd said, so much numbers will be higher again once the final count has gone through. The pandemic may have Fife families reevaluating where they wanted their Fife home, with anybody wanting bigger homes, rooms and bigger ones. Many of the press have dubbed the race for space, meaning the property market was flooded with home buyers, mostly bringing forward the home that they're planned for now in 2025. So does that then say, though, if people are bringing it all forward, that we're going to be taking demand out of the years to come? Is that a plausible argument?
I don't think so, Jim, because people's lives move on, don't they? Unless you're treating the property market like the stock exchange, when you want to buy when prices are low and sell when prices are high. Most people are just trying to get on with their lives. And sure, you now have the luxury of planning when babies come and changing jobs, where you have an element of control over that. But actually, most people, they don't want to put their lives on pause indefinitely on the off chance that there will be a change in the property market.
Jimmy, do you see a lot of demand coming from the people making a decision possibly maybe a couple of years in advance? They've decided to do it now rather than actually wait till later on. And if so, will that actually affect the demand later on then?
I have seen that happen recently, but I would say the people that are doing that right now are acting on more impulse of seeing a property that they really like and trying to get it now, rather than actually thinking that now's the time. So I think no, it won't affect the market in 2 to 3 years' time, because as Alicia says, life moves on. Like myself, I'm going to be in the market in probably about 2 or 3 years' time looking for a bigger property, and probably a lot of other people in my age group are going to be the same, and we'll probably be buying from someone that's probably looking to downsize maybe. So there's lots of different life situations that can happen and make the market move on.
Yeah, just let me do a quick calculation here. If 1 in 15 households are getting sold, that means 170,000 households in Fife. That means 10,000 households would change every year. But we're only really at about 6 to 8,000 every year. So we're actually a lot less than what the national average is in terms of household turnover. It only takes a combination of everything, though. When you think about a small adjustment in inflation, a small adjustment in tax, a small adjustment in the indexation on power supply units, a small adjustment in prices going up, all these different things. Do you not think that will compound in some sort of way and have some sort of effect? Maybe not in the short term, but do you think that will happen in the medium term?
Maybe, but I think that will affect people that aren't really planning for the future and not being as cautious and putting money aside for that be people that affect the people that want to have all the nice things for show rather than the people that are actually forward thinking, if that makes sense.
So would you recommend then people put money aside?
I think, in my opinion, that's what I tried to do, is put money aside for a rainy day. Try my best to do that. But not everybody, some people like to put their nice things on Facebook to make them feel like they're living a nice life, when in reality it's not.
Yeah, that's another story, eh?
Yeah, I think we spoke about that last time I was on the show. So, but I think if you're planning properly and speaking to experts, there should be no reason why it affects you in the future.
I mean, the issue out of this, there are not enough Fife properties on the market to satisfy the Fife buyers. I mean, the Fife properties have unsurprisingly been driven up in price. I mean, the average value of a price of a house in Fife now is £201,580. I mean, that's the 200,000 barrier broken. That's the first time that's actually been done. Although it's said it's still premature to say what will happen in 2022. Most property commentators seem assured that we're not heading towards this price crash, mainly due to one reason. There clearly isn't enough properties on the Fife property market. And simply, it's a supply and demand economics. The property crash of 2008, here's a good one. Let's look at the property crash of 2008. So the property crash of 2008 was caused by everyone dumping their house on the market at the one point in time. Everybody had panicked. It's like dumping a stock when you think about it. So in August 2008, here's the statistic. There were 2,213 properties on the market for sale in Fife, whilst today it stands at 446. The numbers in Fife haven't changed. There's still 370,000 people in Fife almost. So when you think about 1 in 15, if that's 1 in 15 in a house, looking to sell and looking to buy, you've got 400 and let's look at 446 divided by the 15. That's literally 29 out of that when you divide it by the 15. That's crazy. So every now and again, every day, 29 people are making a decision, but that's not going to be enough to keep that going, because we're not going to get back up to 2,213 properties. However, do we really want to get back up to that level?
No, I think that's when it gets up to that start, when it gets up to near that level, that's when we would be talking about a property crash.
Yeah.
Until it gets anywhere remotely near that, I don't think we can have that conversation. And you just have to think we're a quarter of the way there than what it was when it crashed last time. So that's a long way to go, and that's a lot of people to make a decision on selling in a short space of time.
It is really. It's going to take a major event for people to actually decide to all sell their house at the same time and cause that problem. And then it's going to take a major event for people not to be able to buy the property at any one point in time. I mean, look at this. Let's look at mortgage interest rates. And I can't see that changing in 2022. In 2007, the mortgage interest rates were 6.5 to 7.5. So when the economy started to falter, everyone looked to sell their home to reduce their outgoings as unemployment rose to over 60% in just a couple of years. Now, unemployment rose not to 60%, by the way, by 60%. It was never 60% unemployed. No, I said that incorrectly. It rose actually in terms of numbers. It rose by the 60% in the next couple of years. This time, most around the mortgage rates, they're really around probably, would I fair to say, about 2 and 2.5%, and employment is dropping, meaning that they don't need to sell their Fife home. So unemployment is round about, I think it's round about between 4 and 5% just now, or is it just a wee bit more? Economic terms, full employment is between 4 and 6%. Yep. I would say it's just a case of people changing mobility of skills and labour and changing in the hands in the marketplace. So the number of properties on the market are still restricted in supply, and that's what causes this boom. Unemployment rates are dare I say, a record low almost. Interest rates are still at some sort of record low as well. Now, of course, the land and buildings transaction tax holiday, which came to an end, months ago, probably, I think it was April or something like that. The Bank of England base rates are expected to moderately rise over the coming year, not to a level that they were seen in 2007, which was 5.75%. I do remember the dizzy heights of 15%, by the way. Don't know if anybody else remembers that. Luckily, I had a budget and mortgage which was set yearly. So when it went from 12 to 15, I never got that hit straight away. And then by the time that you came down for the year's review, this is the key here about fixed rate mortgages as well. Fixed rate mortgages will hedge you from any increases because you're locked into a deal which we could see you through for the next 2 years, possibly even 5 years. You're getting cracking rates out there just now in fixed rate mortgages if you've got the right loan to value. So we'll talk about the loan to value. So what does that mean, loan to value? What do I mean by that? Well, it means the amount of mortgage you have to the valuation of your house. And that's key there, because what happens out of the loan to value, the lower the loan to value you have with a mortgage lender, the more likely is they'll give you a more preferential interest rate on your mortgage. So if you've got a 90% loan to value, which means, say your house was 100,000 your value, or your flat, probably a flat now at 100,000 to be honest. Probably say your flat's 100,000 and your mortgage is 90,000, just for example. They say, well, we're taking a big risk there. So we would actually, our interest rate might be 5%, for example. Whereas if you had lending of maybe 60%, so 60,000 against 100,000, they then say, well, we've got less risk there, because if anything happens, the last credit crunch, property prices dropped 20%. So when you think about even if it dropped to 80% of the original value and you had 60% loan to value with the bank now, the bank's still hedged. They don't have that much risk. Therefore, they give you a better interest rate as a result. Now, property prices have gone up 14.8% in Fife over the last year.
That's crazy.
Think about that. You took your mortgage out 2 years ago, you've almost got an increase there of maybe about 15, possibly even 20% in the value of your house. So if you're due to renew your mortgage, don't just accept your lender's idea of what they think is going to be the best next deal for you. And if you think that's preferential, because you'll find your loan to value is a lot less now. So therefore, you might have a better rate somewhere else, or you might be able to get a valuation of your property to get you a better loan to value rate. So you can go back to your existing lender and say, well, my loan to value is a lot less now, so I should be getting a better deal than what you're offering me. That makes sense, guys?
Yeah, you explained that well. Well. But
So
I think it's key people know to get the values of the house and know that they have that option available.
Yeah, and it's easy enough for us to do that. I mean, we have an instant valuation tool anyway, which you can pop on and actually try out on our website, and it gives you a no obligation, just valuation on 3 different levels, depending on where your house is. If you want a more firm valuation, you just contact one of us in order to get that valuation, so you have a good idea. If you only want a desktop valuation, you don't want us to come in the door, you can take us round on WhatsApp, show us around your house. We can tell you about the comparables in the area, what ones went in the street and what price they went for, and give you an idea about what the true value of your house is without actually stepping in the door. We could visit if you want, 15-minute walkthrough as well. That's another one that you could do as well. So it's easy enough to do valuations quickly for you in order to give you the right advice and the right information for your new mortgage product. Nonetheless, demand for Fife homes will still be there, as we'd said before. And even reading some reports suggesting that 20% of British households are seriously thinking of moving between now and summer of 2023. And this will support Fife House Prices while demand continues to exceed supply. So, what's your thoughts on predictions for price rises for next year then? Alicia, what are you thinking? I mean, realistically, looking at what we've achieved this year, 14.8%, and where we are just now in terms of the economy, what do you think? Where do you think it will be? Do you think we'll be split up in Fife somewhere where Northeast Fife, East Fife might be more than West Fife? Or do you think it will be overall?
I think that's quite possible. I think, the East Nuke will continue to rise because people will continue to seek a change of lifestyle. That seems to be undoubtedly one of the major impacts of the pandemic, is that people are now reevaluating what they want out of life. And they've discovered that what they want out of life is light and space and, and somewhere to really enjoy their downtime. So I think certainly the Northeast Fife prices will continue to rise. And the other thing that will continue to push prices up in Fife is that very thing. Historically, Fife property prices have lagged behind the rest of the UK. Mm-hmm. And so there will be, even if what you were saying, all these little negative things that you were saying were on the horizon, if they came to pass and people did start selling their houses, they're going to be wanting to move to where it's cheaper, which will continue to make Fife desirable.
Yeah.
So I can really only see in the short term things going up in terms of prices in Fife. And as a consequence of that, we've already had, I mean, I see it in the office day and daily, we get people phoning who said, I wanted to stay in this house forever.
Mm-hmm.
But now I see how much my value has gone up in my property. I'm now thinking I should maybe just sell and move.
Yeah.
And I think that desire to constantly recoup the money in, to gain money, that little bit of greed in all of us will keep the market going.
Mm-hmm. Jimmy, what's your thoughts on prices for next year?
Yeah, I think they'll rise. Not as much as 14%, but they'll definitely rise. But Alicia's right in what she's saying. I would think the East Nuke markets, I would say from sort of St Andrews to sort of Lower Largo, London links, is turning into a market of its own compared to the rest of Fife. But the rest of Fife is still increasing as well. And I've had a viewing with a couple today. They moved up from Derbyshire 18 months ago. They've viewed over 20 properties and still not managed to secure one. So there's people trying to move here, live here, and that's how long it's taken them to find a property. So yeah, I think they'll rise, but definitely not as much as 14%. And to say a number, I think I'd be silly to say a number on how much I think it's going to rise, because
Well, pin your colours to the mast. What would you think?
I would say it's probably about half of what it's done now, probably around about 7.
Mm-hmm.
That's what
Alicia,
I would say.
what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I was my number was 6. That was what I was thinking.
Yeah, I kind of think. I mean, you know, if I was to pin my colours to the mast about it, I would probably think we're sitting probably round about I right across the board, because I think what will bring it down is the Dunfermline area, because there's a huge. I mean, they're volume markets. They're clearly volume markets. Dunfermline, Kirkcaldy, Glenrothes is still quite scarce. It's still a good price point. I mean, Glenrothes, you can see every single week when I do the numbers, Glenrothes is outstripping with demand all the time. So Glenrothes is still a great price point. And then when you cross over into Leven, and then it's kind of neutral, and then it's, as you say, you're going into Cooper, East Nuke, and St Andrews. That's when it goes on the other side. So almost that right down the middle at Fife is that midpoint. And I kind of think that midpoint will be round about the 4.3%, higher by the end of the year. Kind of think, and you know, that's to put a number on it. Time will tell, I suppose. Interestingly enough, I'm just looking at some of the numbers. The average price of a Cooper property is 239,000. The average price of a East Nuke property now is 268,000. The average price of a Glenrothes property is 157,000. See how that's a lot less in terms of the price. Average price of a Leadenmouth property is 155,000. Again, more affordable in comparison. Now Leaden's getting over 100 million pumped into it, so a lot of people don't realise that that's what makes it a good area to. If you are going to invest, and we're going to talk about landlords and investing in a minute, that would be a good market to be in. But no surprise, the average price of a St Andrews property is 391,000. I mean, that's a breathtaking figure, isn't it?
I just don't see why you would want to buy there when you got everything else to what Fife has to offer.
University town, scarcity because they don't build that many in the area. You've got a fantastic microclimate. You're across the road from more or less from Dundee. You've got the train station, but the university drives it all really, and the shortage of supply because of the university market and not able to build enough properties. It'll be interesting to see when the 1,000 properties that are on the cards at some point in time to be built, how that affects the market, and whether that's going to be investors that will try and run in and buy them, which I hope that's not the case. But we don't know. I don't think you can actually curtail that and actually put any specific terms on it. It just means we've got to get a lot of people on board from the St Andrews area, maybe downsizers possibly wanting to move to smaller, more affordable, more efficient accommodation that they don't really have any ongoing costs on. in order to let the upsizers move into their properties. I kind of think that's what we're going to have to do in some sort of terms. So it's going to have to be them getting in there first before anyone else. So I definitely think that's. Yeah.
It will also be interesting to see what the rail link does to the Leavenmouth area.
Yeah.
Because suddenly that's the commuter option is burst wide open for that area. So it could well be that will push up properties in that section as well.
But one of the reasons I actually gave up working in Edinburgh was the commute. I had to commute into George Street every single day to Standard Life. And it was about 3 or maybe 4 hours of your life every single day gone just on commuting in. And then when you worked out the costs at that time, it was at that time the cost, because it was a long time ago I was at Standard Life. It was probably about £2,500 out of my pocket. And then when you compared that to what I was earning on average at that time, it was about a quarter of my income I was on commuting. And then coupled with the time, and I thought to myself, what was the point of that? I'd be better just taking a lower paid job closer to home. And literally, I got a job 5 minutes from my front door as a financial trainee accountant at Fordler Balfour. So it worked out perfectly for me, but it took that time to work that out. But as the train station opens up and it gives you that affordability, the fact that you could commute quicker into the Edinburgh area, into central Edinburgh via Haymarket, it could be, you're absolutely right, Haymarket and Waverley could be an easy option for people to use. Affordable, because when you think about it, look at St Andrews at 300,000, Edinburgh will be about the same, if not a bit more. And then you're looking at leaving, you're thinking, wait a minute, 160 grand. That's a no-brainer. That's less than half the value. I could commute for that purpose and actually be at a seaside location with a lot of amenities on your doorstep, swimming pool, high street, pubs, restaurants, clubs. You know, the writing's on the wall, because you see people like Starbucks, McDonald's, actually investing and leaving. They're actually building central locations now. They all know what's going on. Look at Cooper as well, another classic example. You've got Burger King now opening. Now, these people are ruthless when it comes to statistics and working out footfall and cost per head, or the sales per head that they're going to get on each unit in order to justify them actually building a unit there. So if they're doing that and they know what they're doing, what does that cost?
Yeah, of course, and there's already these the people who are currently living in Edinburgh in tiny little apartments for £250,000, £300,000, and they see that what they could get for that money over in Leavenmouth, a beautiful house with a lovely garden and access to the beaches. It's a no-brainer when the commuter option is opened up.
Yeah, and you've got the golf courses as well. So you've got the Leading Links golf course, you've got the Municipal golf course, you've got the London Links golf course, and then you've got Dumbarton Links golf course just along the road as well. And then you've got Glenrothes golf course, and so you've got a huge amount of golf courses in the area for people. And the rental market might actually have a boom as well, because people might say, I tell you what, I'm paying an absolute fortune for the city centre. Why do I not just move there, try it out, see what happens? I could always move back if it doesn't, but for maybe a third of the rent, or even less than what they're paying now, they could actually have the lifestyle they want. A lot of people working from home as well will make that fundamental difference, won't it?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Because more will be working from home each winter for the foreseeable future because of the new variants. I think that's what's going to happen. You know, but every single winter we're going to come up with a new variant, and this is what's going to happen. We're going to all be working from home at some point in time. This will cement the need for people wanting to move home, move their home to a more remote area, because they don't actually remote working, because they don't actually want to be in big massive crowds in city centre locations.
I think employers also have come to recognize that actually the big fear was that they weren't going to get any work out of their employees if they stayed at home. That has been completely disproven. And now those business owners are able to look at the offices that they had in their possession and think, you know what, I could realize that asset. I could sell that asset, put that money in my pocket, and just get all of my staff working from home, save money on all sorts of bills. So I think that's also a possibility.
So it might be that Fife buyers are looking for the dedicated home office, and they feel that they're no longer needing in the large built-up areas. The employers actually see the benefit and the gain as well. The increase in Fife House prices is expected to entice even more Fife House sellers onto the market, which will steady the Fife House prices slightly as supply increases. Hopefully supply will increase, but we'll be monitoring that every single week on the Fife Property Update on a Sunday night at 7. Yeah, I still believe there won't be enough properties coming onto the market that will satisfy this colossal demand that's coming through. So let's look at this. What about the Fife rental market? Rents tend to grow in line with tenants' wages. So with many people getting decent pay rises, not enough properties being built, many economists are suggesting rents will be 14 to 19% higher by 2027. In the next 5 years, 14 to 19% higher. Even with the house price growth, the numbers for rental investments looks rosy as well. So this then makes you ask the question: is it the right time to buy your first property in Fife for investment, for first buy to let? Controversial subject for a lot of people in Fife, isn't it? Because they see it as taking supply out of the market. When the reality is, actually, if somebody needs a house to rent and they can't buy because they just can't get a mortgage, because it's not possible for them to get a mortgage, then they still need to rent. So we still need a supply of rental properties. I mean, Alicia, do you see that, where there's a lack of supply in the rental market, and even maybe and what's causing behind that? Why is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, I find it to answer the first of that little trio of questions, Jim. Yes, people, it is the best time to start buying your first property in Fife, and it's certainly my aspiration for 2022 is to try and make that happen for me. On the other hand, my heart bleeds a little bit for those people at the bottom end of the income stream, because those rent increases are pretty eye-watering.
Yeah.
So I worry a little bit for those people. But yeah, I think from an investor's perspective, Fife rental market is looking very rosy. Our phones are ringing off the hook with people looking for property to rent in Fife.
But proportionally, when you think about your salary, the rent isn't that much of a proportion of your salary than it was in the 1990s. So interest rates were high, rents were high, and when you worked it all out, proportionally, the rent wasn't that high a value in terms of it. And just now, it's not that high a value either in terms of the price of the property. Because remember, it's still about the cost of capital. If you're buying a property at 200,000 on average, then you surely have to cover that with some sort of rent, because you still have to finance it. Or even if it's cash, you've still got to get some sort of return on capital because of that. And that's why rents will probably move up in line with property prices moving up as well. So it's not the case that just because people have more money, we decide to push rents up. It's demand, but it's also fueled by property prices in that whole process. So the rise in Fife house prices had many people asking whether 2022 is the right time to buy their first home, and should they buy now before Fife prices rocket, or further, or delay in the hope that prices might actually come back down. And this is the point we actually laugh, isn't it?
Yeah,
because prices aren't going to come back down, really. And I think what's the answer we say to all the time to property investment? When is the right time to buy?
now.
Always now.
Now, always now, because since records began, house prices have always gone up more than inflation over the years. The last 20 years, inflation went up 177%, according to the bank's figures, or the government's figures, but property prices in Fife went up 220%. So property prices actually still went further than the value of inflation, hence the reason that you're getting a decent return on your capital, plus the fact that you're actually earning money as you're doing it as well. You're in and rent. You're literally paid to wait on the price of the value going up. I mean, how great is that?
I was waiting on you saying that, Jim. Paid to wait.
And I'll say it every single time, because it'll never change.
Indeed.
And it's amazing how many people don't actually have. If I had a penny right here, I would drop it on the ground and say, "Has the penny dropped yet?" for people about investing in property, because effectively that's what it is. You could even do things like build to rent. So you can actually build properties to rent. That is on the cards, and that is feasible for some people to do, build to rent. And I know house builders that are actually doing that just now. They're looking at opening up land in order to build to rent. Look at the housing associations as well. They're building to rent. They're actually releasing their land now and building to rent and planning is actually getting, there's a bit of pressure getting put on planning now to release pockets of land and areas which actually haven't had that before. Look at the back of Cooper. I mean, the other side of Cooper, I mean, that's zoned for housing as well. So that's going through consultation. So you've got St Andrews, you've got Cooper. Potentially, there's talk about East Neuk somewhere. However, I think they're going to struggle because then you'll have to infrastructure improvements, which is like classroom sizes. I mean, classroom sizes, I was getting told the other day by some of the people that are there, are about 30 pupils per teacher. I mean, it's supposed to be down at about 23, 25, I think. So I don't see that as
need to be a supermarket.
That is a barrier to actually build more houses in the area, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of political conflicting ideas there as well, because every time you increase or put land aside for house building, you remove land from the green belt, essentially, which is people's amenity area, or indeed it's arable farming land. So there's a lot of conflicting political pressures there that councils have to deal with. But certainly I think the housing aspect is climbing up the ladder in terms of priority politically now, because there just aren't enough houses and it's getting to crisis point.
Yeah, I think crisis point's been reached and gone. I think that went some time ago, probably back in the 1980s when that decision was made to sell off all the council houses and never build another one. Selling off the council houses was fine, but yes, they should have started building more for that purpose, but they didn't do that, and it's kind of coming home to roost, isn't it?
Yes, certainly is. When you have to buy back the own stuff that you built, something went wrong.
Well, the council's doing that, aren't they? So they're earmarking, they've got a budget for 50 properties a year to buy back from us, from estate agents, and anybody they might have a property that they might be interested in, it might actually suit their criteria. However, I would say, if I said that the council's buying back, the council will not pay you over the odds for a property. They will only pay you the home report value, and that is it. Now, just now on average, we're getting 12% over the home report value. So think about that. A price of a house that's at 200,000 is getting 24 to 25,000 pound more on average. That's only on average for us. So when you think about, there's people getting more, there's people getting less. So potentially your house could actually get a lot more. So I wouldn't be rushing in any time soon to do a deal with the council straight away. I would actually be speaking to an estate agent first. It doesn't matter any estate agent. I'm going to recommend us, obviously, but it doesn't matter. Any estate agent will do, because they'll be able to tell you what the value of your house is and potentially what the market's like just now. But you probably have a good guess yourself based on what we're talking about and the statistics you're talking about, that the market is really, really buoyant just now. Okay, so if the Fife home that you want to buy is on the market and available to you and you can't afford the mortgage, then delaying could be detrimental. It's like holding off for the next generation TV, and then it comes out, and then just as you're about to buy the TV, the next generation comes right out the back of it, and it's announced in 6 months' time. And the cycle is constantly in motion. So you end up never buying the TV. That's the reality. It goes on. Just like you'll never buy your own home. That's exactly what happens. Isn't it? It's exactly what happens. People wait and wait and wait. I have a person who actually, spoke to me about property investment 20 years ago. And while I've been buying a substantial amount of properties for property investment, he's still bought none. He's never even started. And yet he still talks to me about every single time. So buying property is a long game. I think that's the right assessment to that. Yeah.
100%, yeah. 100%.
It's definitely a long game. It can't be anything different for anybody to go out there. And I was looking at the day with some people. And these so-called property gurus, and they were, they're going on about you could make millions in a couple of years, and you could be financially free and retired in a couple of years. And I'm gobsmacked, because then you look at their public accounts, and they've not got anything. They've not got anything themselves, effectively, and they're telling you they can make millions in a couple of years, or if not a year, and yet they can't even do it themselves. They've not even done it, but they're telling you that. So property out there for everybody is definitely a long game. Sometimes you've just got to make a decision, get something bought, and start the journey off for the next 25 to 35 years of living in your family home whilst paying off your mortgage. You could do that as well. There's a lot of people that do that, don't they? They pay off their mortgage. Now, that's not a strategy I would do personally for obvious reasons, because I could make more money on the mortgage money. But a lot of people actually do that, don't they? They purport that you should be probably paying. I actually saw one of the Shark Tank in America.
Yeah,
I actually was looking at an interview with one of the sharks, and he said he was always taught you buy your property and then you pay all the mortgages off by the time you're 60. Is that a good strategy?
Depends what you want in life. If you want a huge bank balance, it's probably not the best strategy. But if you want to live worry-free and have a nice lifestyle so that all of your income is, or virtually all of your income is disposable, then it's not a bad strategy. Just horses for courses.
Yeah. I'm going to take a couple of comments on here. I mean, Alan Blackie said 2,000 plus moving to lookers by 2029. The MOD is rebasing more housing to be built in the near future. Thank you for that, Alan. I appreciate your comments on that. Helen actually says this is so unfair. The over the home report value sales. She sold in March 2021 and is now stuck in a rental property. Now, Helen, you should really speak to Jimmy, because Jimmy can register you as a preferential priority access buyer, and it will actually give you priority access to some properties before they even get on the market. So you need to speak to Jimmy, and you need to follow our Facebook pages as well, because you get our pre-portal launches and priority access buyers, pre-portal launches. That's all done way before it gets on the internet. So potentially a lot of these properties are away before then. That's a classic example of George Terrace and Cellar Dyke. As soon as it hit the internet, it was away. It was away on Christmas Eve. It had only been on less than 24 hours, but the deal was done because the person saw it before, got them in for a viewing on a priority access, and it was gone. Offer made, done and dusted by 5 to 5, literally. I got the email from the solicitor at probably 2 minutes past 5. I responded to it and said, yep, job done. He was away home, by the way. But I still said, job done, accepted. But it was all verbally accepted anyway. So definitely, Helen, contact us. We can definitely do something for you. Jimmy's the guy to speak to. Is house auction still a thing? Paul actually said. Yeah, but it's more so. House auction's always been England, really. No many people go to house auction. Jimmy, what's your thoughts on that?
That's not for me, and not something I would advise anyway. And if you are purchasing from auction, make sure you're doing as much due diligence as you can before you even step through the door, because otherwise you'll just be wasting your time. And what's frustrating me at the moment is, I understand if it's your home, it's something to look at, but investors, landlords, or developers saying there's no deals on the market right now. If you look closely enough and do proper due diligence, there's always deals. There's plenty of deals out there.
We see them all the time.
You just need to know what you're doing and what you're looking at. And if you need help with that,
yeah, I've got an investor just sent me a portfolio of 33 properties he's looking to offload. Yeah. So there's always deals out there. No one knows about this because I just know, because I've been around in the property investment business for around about 30 years now. So everybody knows everybody else in that area. And I know these properties are available, and I've spoken to them already. So, this can actually happen. And everything can be done off market beforehand, and that's why it's important to register with all your estate agents. Don't go back to the old model. The old model is actually just relying on Rightmove and Zoopla telling you. That's an old model now. We're now into the 2022. We're into the modern world, the world of talky pictures, rather than actually just relying on websites telling you a property is available now, because often they're gone before you actually get to market or get on a website. So definitely, I would think that's really what I would want to do. So at present, low interest rates for first-time buyers means that there are very some low mortgage deals available for those with a decent deposit, making it a good time to buy a Fife property, especially if you've got a fixed interest rate. If your deposit is humbler. The government's 5%. So government does a 95% mortgage guarantee scheme, which will enable you to buy a property, albeit a slightly higher interest rate, which is a good deal. Again, you can speak to our mortgage brokers, get in touch with us if you're wanting to do that. Looking at the bigger picture, in my opinion, there's really only two options, and there's only a couple of options. If inflation doesn't get too out of hand and interest rates don't go above 2 to 3%, it looks like Fife House Prices will, for 2022 and the few years beyond, continue upwards, albeit a slow trajectory than 2020 and 2021, and probably with a few short, sharp down spikes on the way as well. Just jitters. Interestingly enough, when we've been watching the stock market is the FTSE 100 is sitting at 7,420 points. Now, at the start of the year, it was below that, but we've actually jumped up quite significantly, and I think that's the highest I've seen it ever. And yet, we're still talking about inflation going out of control, and people are still pouring their money into the stock market in terms of that. So there's a lot of dynamics there, which you think to yourself, if it all aligns at the same time, that is still my concern about the fact that it could have a knock-on effect to the property market. But shortage of supply will keep that going, won't it?
Yeah, in my opinion, it will. It has to. It has to. It really does.
So, what's your final thoughts on this then? Alicia, just to wrap up on this one then.
Rules of supply and demand constantly prevail.
Yeah.
There's not enough housing out there, so the prices are going to rise, which in turn will tempt people to sell.
And rents are going to rise as well as a result.
I hope we just keep in time with that.
Yeah, Jimmy, what about yourself?
Basically, just piggyback on the back of Alicia. What I would say is, people, if you're holding off on selling or renting because you're hoping the price, or moving house into a different rental because you hope prices are going to come down, then you're wasting your time. Do something about it now, because now is the right time to do.
Yeah.
Now is always the time.
Now is always the time. My key thing here is make sure it's in a level of affordability. Do not mortgage yourself up to the hilt, because at this point in time, we're at the lowest interest rates ever. We're at the best employment rate ever. We're at an inflation which is tolerable, but price rises are on the horizon. Interest rates are on the horizon and rising as well. So when you think about it, your costs will begin to go up. So that's why buy within your means, but also put in a buffer. So possibly if you've got a mortgage you can get for 300,000, maybe buy a house at 200,000 if you can get it, which is more affordable and accommodates your needs. So personally, I always go for something you need rather than something you want. That's the key here. So that's the voice of reason. Go for something you need. Remember, something you need rather than something you want. There's a distinction there. If you don't understand that distinction, you need to message us privately, and I'll tell you what that means. The bottom line is ensure that any Fife House move that you intend to make is something you can afford. Allow for future interest rate rises. Make plans for many eventualities that possibly might happen. You look at the now, we're not getting any subsidies for coronavirus, for being off and isolating. We're not getting any help at all, really, in essence. I was speaking to somebody the day about that, and they says, well, we can get a grant for £500, but that's a drop in the ocean considering what they're losing. That's a one-off. They'll never get that again. And if you've got people locked down for, well, we've seen it on the news, 10 days, 20 days, 30 days. It's like, how long is that going to stop? How long is that going to stop if you physically can't work? Because this person physically couldn't work. So act within your means and buy within your means as well to make sure you can be fine for in the future. And even if it doesn't pan out like that, you've still got a saving you can make, and you could potentially invest in property. You could do a buy-to-let as well on the side, and that'll give you an additional income to hedge your income as it comes through. And that will increase in value over the years as well. So your investment in property in a buy-to-let will go up in value at the same time as your house will go up in value, and you'll be multiplying your income. Just my opinion. You don't need to live with it. I only retired at 38-year-old 17 years ago. But what do I know? Anyway, that's it. Guys, thanks very much for coming on the show. If anybody's got any further questions watching this, the rerun, please feel free to message us direct. You can make a comment as well. We'll still catch up with you later on. And bye-bye for now. Bye-bye.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.